All right, so I hope this is, yep, it's recording. We got it. Hi guys, welcome. I'm Terrell, your, strength coach. And every week or every couple of weeks, I hope to bring on an expert who works within the realms of pelvic health. So me, I like the strength thing, tongue-tied there, and training at a really high capacity, but running, not my jam, I have to admit. Mad respect for runners, because if you're in Ontario, or I guess even in the States, some of the northern states, it's like 50 below outside, and I still see runners, and I think that they're like crazy people. But I guess when you love something so much, a bit of cold weather isn't going to get you down. So this is my friend Amanda. She is a postnatal coach. She helps moms get back into fitness safely with the needs of pelvic health in mind. So she takes care of a lot of the rehab side of fitness postpartum. Yay, I love that. And she's also a running coach with her own experiences with pelvic health. I'll let her talk about that. Now she owns a fitness business in Barrie. I almost said London. Like, yay, we're neighbors. No, not quite. In Barrie, Ontario, Canada. And it's Amanda Ingram Fitness, right? Yeah. And she works with moms in person and online. So if you're looking to get back into running or need a little rehab after the birth of your baby or with your pelvic health, look her up. AmandaIngramFitness.ca or .com?
Yeah, .com.
.com. Okay, yes, .com at all. So, hi Amanda. Thank you for meeting with me right now, but there'll be a few more watching. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah,
you're not wrong with the cold weather. I was out with a client last night, and yeah, it was frigid.
Frigid, yes, yeah, brutally frigid. Yeah. So yeah, let's just start off with your story. What got you into working more on the rehab side postnatally?
Sure. So I'll start. It kind of actually starts with the running. So I started running late in life, if you will, like 28. I don't know we want to call that late in life, but
that's so late.
I hadn't always ran, let's say. And it kind of, I questioned, it was just something I'd always told myself I couldn't do. And one day I kind of went, well, why? So that kind of started me on my running journey, all the way up to being an ultra marathoner. And ultra marathons are anything over the distance of a marathon. So I have run 100 miles as my longest distance to date.
My goodness.
Yeah. So that was it was a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's 29 and a half hours. So, yeah. So this background is just to kind of tell you where I was coming from when I got pregnant. So when I got pregnant for the very first time with my first daughter, I was still running through my pregnancy, making sure that was okay with my doctors. I had no knowledge about pelvic health at the time, and was kind of just running within how I felt. I had to stop due to high blood pressure, but if I hadn't, I would have continued on right up till the end. And then after having my daughter, like the second I had a C-section, and the second I got given the clearance at 8 weeks postpartum, I was like back on the trails immediately. And I definitely noticed that I'd had a baby. But I just kind of kept running and not thinking much of it. And actually it was through a running clinic that lots of ladies were talking about peeing their pants. And I was just like, I think that's just what happens like when you have a baby. And so I brought in a pelvic floor physio to chat, because I'm like, I feel like I've heard about this before, so I'm going to get someone to come in. And it was like, oh my
Right.
God, whole other world out here. So that's what sent me down into becoming certified in pelvic floor fitness, all of that kind of stuff. And I also ended up finding out that I had a bladder and rectal prolapse, which had I not gone down this road, I would have just continued running because mine is asymptomatic. So I don't leak, I don't have any pressure or heaviness or anything for now, which is good. And yeah, I'm so grateful that I found that out, because otherwise it probably would have gotten worse over time rather than me knowing about it, being able to kind of work within what I could do. So that was kind of my journey into how I got into that. And now I share that with everybody.
Yes, you do.
Stuff like that, because really, especially with things like high impact exercise, like running, your pelvic floor is so important, as you know, to really make sure that it is functioning the way you want it to be functioning. And I actually always recommend that anyone who wants to get back into running or start running, really go and double check with a pelvic floor physio that everything is functioning as it should. Because in my case, I didn't have the symptoms that I would normally tell someone to go and see about. So just, that's a great way to just know with confidence that when you start back into running, you're doing so safely.
Right. And, and I love that you say that, see a pelvic floor physiotherapist. Doctors are great at what they do, and it's an important step in your postnatal recovery. However, they're not looking at your pelvic health. They're not doing an internal check for prolapse. And if they are, they're not checking you in various positions. So your prolapse might feel differently when you're laying on your back than it does when you're running, right? And Amanda makes another great point that she didn't know she had a prolapse. Her symptoms were asymptomatic. So if she had noticed symptoms, then you would have had more reason to go, right? But like many women, it's common not to have any symptoms. I'm asymptomatic as well. So then do you then think that because you had the information that you had the two prolapses, because you can have more than one, so that changed how you continued running from that point?
Yes, and I'll be very honest. I had the knowledge when I went to the pelvic floor physio to find this out at that time. And it was a blow. Even knowing everything that I know and knowing that there's something you can do about it, it was very tough news to swallow at the time, kind of going, what does that mean for me? Like, can I get my prolapse to a point where it's okay for me to run long distance? And yeah, that was a journey. But once I kind of sat in my feelings for a little bit and decided, okay, this is what it is. We're going to see what we can do about it. And then kind of coming up with my game plan for how I was going to run continuing on. It's really just, and I'm sure you talk a lot about this, listening to your body and seeing, like, what does this feel okay? Do I have symptoms when I'm running? And a lot about what I teach in general, and that goes into running as well, is to really, really start nice and slow, which in running sometimes, especially if up until we had our baby, we've been running, it can be very tempting to want to jump back into what we were doing before. And it may not be serving you and your body at that time. So really listening. And also that goes into pregnancy too. Like there is going to come a time where you may not be helping yourself or your pelvic floor by continuing to run. And that I mean, maybe through talking to a pelvic floor physio, through just feeling how you're feeling. Like, I know I got to a point where my belly was heavy and like it wasn't comfortable to run anymore, and I was like, I'm good. But yeah, because we see a lot of people running for their entire pregnancies, and that being glorified, or they're running ultras when they're 7 months pregnant. And I mean, I guess if you can do that without having symptoms and stuff like that, or with feeling okay, but I would think, just coming from a place of experience, the strain on your pelvic floor in pregnancy, it may just not be worth it for what you're getting out of it. So that, again, that kind of comes down to a kind of listening to yourself, maybe consulting with a pelvic floor physio to see how things are going. But yeah, runners are an interesting bunch, and I will definitely be one of them to say, like, it's, for a lot of us, it's what keeps us happy, and it's our outlet and stuff like that. And that would probably go for any kind of fitness. So yeah, just kind of finding what works for you is very important.
Right. And I love that you say that, working with the pelvic floor physiotherapist, even in pregnancy, if running is something that you continue or you wish to do for, the entire duration. I know chasing my toddler around when I was pregnant was awful. It did not make me feel good. So I avoided it at all costs. But you're right. We do see women running marathons, ultra marathons at 39 weeks pregnant. And, it tends to be, and I mean, we see it in lifting too. Women are, lifting at, their 300-pound deadlifts at, 39 weeks pregnant. And it's like, yeah, you probably can, but there's a risk versus reward here. And what is that, right? And a lot of it is just, not having the information, not knowing, because a lot of the times, when we're told to listen to our body, we feel fine. And we don't have, we're not properly educated on what to look for. So this is where working with professionals can really be of service to women who wish to continue to run during pregnancy or postnatally, or lift, but we're here to talk about running. So then tell me, so you had a second baby since then. How old is she now? She's
11 months.
11 months. Oh, goodness. Yeah. It goes by fast, eh?
Too fast.
So then so after the birth of your second baby, when did you start your pelvic health or your pelvic floor rehab?
So second time around for me was a bit more complicated. I had another C-section. We had some complications there, so the recovery time was a bit longer. Also, I'm sure you and lots of other people can relate to this. Like, learning life with like more than one child is like, yep, that's fun.
Yeah, fun.
So that kind of stuff. And really, this time around, I wanted to embrace the pregnancy and the recovery, which I didn't do the first time around. Right. And not feel the pressure to get back into it immediately. And I really allowed myself the time to rest and recover. I started doing rehab around probably the 6-week mark. When I was 8 weeks, I was given like the clearance from my OB to kind of go ahead and do whatever I wanted, which I mean, yeah, which for me was like, okay, so that means like I'm okay to start doing my gentle recovery.
The going slow part of it.
Right. So, I mean, I know you can start, depending on your birth, like everybody's births are different. So you can start doing the rehab breathing stuff earlier. But for me and my body and how I was feeling, it just wasn't going to happen. I was maybe doing some breathing with pelvic floor contractions and stuff like that earlier on. But yeah, it definitely wasn't something that I jumped back into like I did last time.
Nice.
So yeah, and then running this time around, also convenient that it was the middle of winter, but
That'll help with the
my
recovery
daughter was in the middle of summer, so
yeah.
it changes that pull a little bit for me. But yeah, I didn't start trying to run, I think, until I actually want to say I was 16 weeks postpartum. I just didn't feel, I had tried sooner and it just didn't feel good. And one thing I suggest too, if you want to try to get started, or if you're getting back into running, is try out different surfaces to run on. I ran on both asphalt and dirt on trail, really close back to back, when I started getting back into it. And just like the shock absorption of running on a dirt trail over over asphalt or cement was actually like night and day for me personally. I had no pain in my joints or in my pelvis when I would run on a dirt trail, versus on
You kind of closed it.
I'm a big fan of running. But yeah, I actually really truly noticed a difference. So I actually shifted a lot of my running onto trail for a while, just to start kind of building back up, getting those stabilizer muscles kind of firing again, before transitioning back to asphalt. And then it felt way better when I'd run on like the road, after kind of doing a little bit of almost like running rehab on the trails. It was really interesting. Yeah, really neat and lovely, actually.
Well, I'm sure it's a lot nicer to run on a wooded trail as opposed to a busy street, right?
That is true as well, especially in the hot summer months and stuff. It's super fun. So if you do have access to that, yeah, or even see if you have access to like a park or something, to try running on the grass and just see if there's a difference for you. Or if you're feeling great running on the road, then absolutely continue on.
Yeah.
This is just kind of again, seeing what's feeling okay or what may be uncomfortable. And then the big ones, like if you're leaking or if you have severe pain, we don't want that when we're running. That's a good sign that pelvic floor isn't ready for that kind of impact exercise. And if you are doing pelvic floor rehab, maybe we're going back a little bit to work on that for a little bit longer, or if not, you're going to go and see a pelvic floor physio just to make sure that something isn't, maybe like a prolapse or something isn't happening, or just maybe you're just not ready for that strain of impact.
Yeah, and that's true, and first I want to say, like, I love the point that you made that, when you attempted to start running again and you ran on asphalt, it didn't feel good, but you didn't give up. You didn't say, okay, my body's not ready. You just tried something different, right? And you found that work, running on trails worked better for you during that time period. And that's an important thing that, as fitness professionals want to stress. If something doesn't feel good one way, try another. It doesn't mean that you have to give up running if it doesn't feel good in one spot, right? So, it may take some trial and error. It may take some just playing around with, but experiment. It's okay to do that. If you've had that clearance from your pelvic floor physiotherapist, you've done the rehab, and, your body is technically ready, go ahead and try. It may not be ready to run in one spot, but hey, why not try another? And, and that's the whole progressive overload principle that we use in strength and conditioning. Starting off slow and progressively building, right?
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up, and that you didn't give up, the first time you tried. It was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. You just tried something different. So, and then there was something else that you said, and I was like, yes, that's awesome. And then I forgot. I should have wrote it down. Mom brain. And I've been like dealing with this like head cold for, oh gosh, the last week. And No. And yeah, then I'm like, I got a sniffle and yeah. So, um, but sorry, it will come back to me.
Oh, yeah.
I hope. So then we were talking a little bit before we got started, and you have a running group coming up, or you plan on starting it now, waiting for the winter or to kind of run its course because it's really cold out there right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the program that I'm going to do is going to be a little bit unique in that it's going to start in a gym, not on the road running. And we're going to actually just kind of cover some of the rehab exercises, maybe for those who haven't started doing that, or for those who maybe did that, but they want a refresher just to make sure everything's functioning as we'd like it to. We're also going to build some muscle for running. And yeah, and then we're going to get out and get running. So it's going to be a few weeks in the gym, just kind of getting our bodies prepared, and then we're going to start running. I found what worked for me best and what I teach, especially for new runners or people who are coming back to running after a long time. And this can actually even be really beneficial if you were a runner before and you're getting back into it after having a baby. I don't know about other people, but I found having a baby very humbling on the effects that it had on my body. And actually forcing me to take that step back and take the time to build back up again. Very, very often, I think I may have just touched on this already, we can just want to jump back in because that's where we were at. Or if we're just getting started, a lot of us can see that as, okay, I want to run, so I'm going to go out, I'm going to run at whatever pace I think of running is, which is usually pretty fast. So you're just like gunning it out there for as long as you can until you can't run another second. And then you feel fairly awful usually after that. And it doesn't really make us want to keep doing that.
Right.
So how I like to teach running is that the first few sessions they shouldn't feel difficult for you. And I always say, if it does, just slow down a little bit. The speed will come. But what we need to do right now is start building some muscular endurance for running, some structural like integrity for running. And we want to then build upon that. So it's really similar actually to the idea of what we do after we have a baby. So we're building a nice strong foundation to kind of grow upon. And that's the same thing for running. We're going to get our bodies feeling good in the movement first before we start adding on all of this extra stuff like speed and that kind of thing. And I'm a big firm believer of taking walk breaks. If you want to build up to not taking walk breaks anymore, 100% go for it. I like doing walk breaks because for me, 5K running for, depending on what you do, 30 minutes, 25 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, sounds like a lot. But if you tell me, no, you just have to run 10 minutes 3 times, okay. So I actually start my runners running for 1 minute and walking for 2 minutes. And it sounds like it is not a lot. And it really actually isn't a lot in the beginning. And I always say, you shouldn't really finish your first session going, oh my gosh, like I'm dying. You should really finish going, okay, like that's something that I can do. And then we build upon that. And the time that we walk gets shorter and the time that we run gets longer. And we just build up from there. And I found that to be a really successful way to run and to actually enjoy running. So for some of us who may not consider ourselves runners, which I did not, by the way, when I started running, it really helps us feel good about what we're doing and feel confident in what we're doing.
Right.
Instead of just going out feeling like you're like drained completely from running. That comes in time when we start doing and building and doing all those things. But just to build that base and to feel nice and strong and confident in our bodies, it's nice to start going a little bit slower and then building up. So that's my philosophy with running, especially for starting out.
Mhm.
Obviously, as we build up and we have time goals and distance goals, oh, that gets much different, much different picture. But yeah, to start out, and yeah, it's been very successful for me and the moms that I've worked with who have truly loved running after kind of starting in that way.
Well, and then, when they get back into, well, if they're competitive runners or, they're, because, or recreational runners, competitive or recreational, they're not doing their runs feeling like they need to stop and go to the bathroom, or stopping, or needing to wear a pad, or worrying about what's going to happen to the contents of their bladder, or in their bowels, because that happens too. um, so I can imagine that being a more empowering, seeing that my body can do this, and it's like, okay, I want to do more because I can see how my body is responding to this, as opposed to my body's doing all of this and I have no control over it, so I just don't want to do anything at all.
Absolutely. And
Right?
having that piece is so important to the self-confidence part, because who wants to run if you're worried you're going to pee your pants every time that you step out the door? You're going to have pain in your pelvis or in your
Yeah.
back. Yeah, so no. And on a personal level, and I think this probably applies to lifting and all of those things, is for me, running was what shifted how I saw my body. And I carried that with me. So instead of constantly worrying about how my body looks, it really shifted to how it functions and how amazing it is. So being able to, like, I'm like, oh my God, I did 5K. Can I do more? And I was like, I did 10K. Can I do more? And for some, that's not, the path is not to continue further. But for me, it was. And it was just, it absolutely shifted how I viewed my body in a very positive way, in a functionality over looks kind of way, which has been amazing for me.
Yeah, no doubt. And and I can, like, I've worked with a couple of runners, and you guys are hardcore. You guys are hard to slow down. So having that mindset piece there and being able to coach that mindset, because the last thing a runner is going to do is stop running. Like, if they're, in love with it, even if they're having symptoms of the prolapse, of stress urinary incontinence, if they are having pain, it's hard to get them to reel them back and get them to slow down. And the last thing you can, like I said, tell a runner to do is stop running. So I love what you've done, in helping women get back to running after they've had a baby, or, in learning how to manage their pelvic health. It's okay, well, let's just take steps, actionable steps that, it's not going to pummel you. You're not going to feel like you can't get through the rest of the day. We're just going to start here, see what happens. Okay, let's go here. Let's see what happens, right? And, and that's where, I can say, as a woman myself, I have more confidence in my body when it functions well and it responds well to what I'm trying to do. However, excuse me, however, if you're always in pain, or you're leaking, or you're feeling that pressure or bulging, that can be very hard emotionally on a woman. It's not just the physical piece, it's the emotional and mental piece as well. And like I said, like, I'm not a runner. I do run on occasion. The first time I ran, I was like 4 months postpartum. I was at CrossFit and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to run. I didn't train up to running or anything like that. And it was only like 200 meters. So it was doable. But to be quite honest, I hadn't run in years. I did the rehab piece, and the strength was there, the foundation was there, but I was a bit scared, let me tell you. But I did it. I was so unconditioned, just catching my breath. I mean, other things were working well. It was just, holy cow. But, you know, now that it's been a year, you know, I can honestly say, like, my conditioning is so much better just because I had taken those small steps in the beginning. But like I said, you know, I love that you work with women in getting them there and working on that mindset piece, because that is probably the hardest thing to break through. Because, you know, as athletes, which runners are, they've been trained to push through those things, right? So
that's a good one to bring up, because in pregnancy too, it was really, really hard for me to shift that mindset from pushing through things to being like, no, actually, I have to listen right now. And the same goes for postpartum, where, yeah, I'm getting like wicked pain in my pelvis. If that had been any other time, I'd be like, no, we push through that, see how it is after a while, hope that it gets better. But in this case, it's kind of going, that may just be a sign that I need to adjust something and maybe not keep going at that same intensity. So yeah, it's kind of that it's a bit of a journey after you have a baby and in pregnancy to kind of find what your new normal is for a little bit, or maybe for a little bit longer, depending on what you're dealing with in terms of your pelvic health. But it's always worth it. It's tough, because I agree, it's really hard to tell someone that they can't start running immediately, and maybe can't isn't the right word. But like for me personally, it just wasn't going to happen for me until I was feeling better and getting that foundation. So it's just taking a slight pause to build that strong foundation and then continuing on.
right.
I know a lot of what you teach is kind of like that you can like push or test the limits after you've had a baby, which I love.
No,
and
that's kind of easily. I'm still conservative, but yes,
really,
I know.
But it's nice to kind of have because sometimes we go the complete opposite too, right? Where we say, nope, can't do anything, can't lift with prolapse, can't run with prolapse ever again. And I've been told that, like with prolapse, no, you probably shouldn't run anymore. And like that can be a really discouraging message, and not necessarily true, because if you can run without symptoms, and if your pelvic floor is functioning properly, there's no reason why you can't continue to do something that you love.
It makes you feel good, right? You know, for many women, you know, regardless of activity, if you love jazzercise and it makes you feel good, it's your community, you know, you've got friends there who are like family, saying you need to give that up is a lot, right? And you don't have to give that up. And yeah, I do, you know, push the limits a little bit, but it's more about building that confidence in your body. Not, you know, I have this big ego, so, you know, go squat 500 pounds, you know. It's a very progressive road that we're taking. You know, and this is where working, you know, with a coach, you know, if you want to get back into running, working with someone like Amanda, if you want to get back into lifting, I can help you out. You know, that's where that can be beneficial too, because, you know, because there isn't a lot of training in traditional, I don't know if there's running certifications. Again, you know, it's not my area of expertise, but in traditional like personal training or, you know, strength and conditioning, there's nothing on pelvic health, right? No. So, you know, even consulting or working with somebody that can help you, you know, make not only the mindset shifts, but work within what you can do. And it's like, this is my body today, right? Just because you're here now doesn't mean that 3 months from now you'll be stuck in the same spot. Sorry, excuse me. I had a tickle in my throat. Lots of that happening. So then, do you have, I'm sure you have lots of stories, but is there anything that jumps out at you, or a client that jumps out at you, that you worked with where, you know, they're challenges were maybe more significant and how you worked with them to overcome some of those things?
Yeah, so I had a client who had a prolapse, and had wanted to run, but there was a lot of fear surrounding that, and kind of being told that um, it was dangerous to run. So she had ended up working with a pelvic floor physio, and we worked together at the same time, and we got to a point where she was able to start running. And we worked together on that and built up nice and slowly. And running really wasn't her thing, but it was always a goal that she had in the back of her mind as something she wanted to do. And yeah, over the course of working with her, I can't remember how many months it was. I want to say it was 8 months, but it may have been a little bit longer. Yeah, we ended up, I was there at the finish line when she did her first half marathon. So some like really amazing stuff. It's been really cool to be a part of people's journeys in that way, and kind of show, not even from like a pelvic health standpoint, but just from like what you're capable of as a woman and a person. Like it's amazing what you can put your mind to, and how sometimes there's some limiting beliefs there.
Right.
Or you're told something that may not necessarily be the case. So kind of challenging that and asking questions and seeking out people who can help and give you more answers, because sometimes there's more than what meets the eye with what you're told.
Well, and I love that, because you're right, you know, like there's a lot of limiting beliefs, you know, that we have in general. And, you know, they seem to be validated when we Google certain things, or, you know, we speak to people who actually just don't have the educational basis to, you know, provide that advice, right? I know for myself, I was, you know, it was like CrossFit's bad, it's horrible for your pelvic floor. I've been in CrossFit for over a year now, and my pelvic health improved. My prolapse, I had a grade 2 urethral prolapse. It's been downgraded. And, you know, it's all about the strategy. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I love that, you know, in you working with this client who had these limiting beliefs, you know, you worked in tandem with her pelvic floor physiotherapist. It took time, 7, 8, 9 months, you know, that's a big commitment. And for some women, you know, that's just what it takes to reach that goal, right? So, you know, but she got there. She, you know, and she did it without symptoms, and she did it with confidence, and she did it with some really awesome people behind her, encouraging her and supporting her. So I love that. I love that. So yeah, I guess we will take a minute and wrap up here. So you do have a running group starting in the spring, I guess, when the and then you do have some online coaching as well. So if there's anybody that wants to reach out to you but doesn't live in Barrie, you can reach Amanda that way. And it's amandaingramfitness.com. I'll put a link in the description section. I'll upload it. And if you want a copy, I can send it to you. I'll have to send you a YouTube link because this tends to be too big to email. The inboxes don't like this. So do you have anything to add before we go? If we missed anything, or...
No, just, you know, it's one of those things where if running something that you love doing, or if it's something you've thought about doing, just know that you absolutely can do it. And there is a way. I mean, within reason, of course. There's always extreme circumstances, but for the most part, there absolutely is something that you can do. We can work together and run, or you can find someone to work with and run. And just, it's for me, as you can tell, running is like my love. So I love sharing that with other people. So yeah, just kind of one of those beliefs that it seems so cheesy, but it's just so true that you really can do anything that you put your mind to. As funny as that sounds, it's actually true. And for me, running showed me that. So I love to share that feeling with other people.
And I'm glad you still get to do it.
Me too. Oh my gosh, me too.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I'm glad that we got the chance to chat. Sorry about last week. My head was like this big. It was awful.
No worries.
It happens, right? Oh goodness. But yeah, you've answered all of my questions. Like I said, I'm not a runner, but if I was to get back into running, I'd know exactly where to start and how to get started. But most importantly, I think, well, this conversation here is only going to empower women who have had babies or, during pregnancy as well, just, to be mindful of how they're running, especially in the beginning, and just, really take care of their bodies in that aspect. Because like I said, I've worked with a few runners and you guys are hardcore. The commitment, I love it, and I respect it. And, I'm a true believer that women shouldn't have to give up the activities they love because, of a pelvic or of their pelvic health or, simply because they've had babies, right? So thank you again for sharing your knowledge, dropping some serious knowledge bombs here. And I'll, post Amanda's contact information as well. So again, thank you so much. Stay warm and, I'm going to cough again. And yeah, if you have any questions for Amanda, please feel free to get in touch with her. I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you. You're like, no, this isn't. All right.
Anytime.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I am going to just hit the stop button.